Was the New Mutants? Did you see that trailer? Did you see the trailer for it?
I don't remember. I think I might have. I don't recall it if I did.
You want to watch it? Or are you good?
Sure. I mean,
all right.
Yeah, we should be able to talk about it, right? I guess maybe I'd be less dickish about it if I've actually seen it. Will they ever give up on the X-Men, you think?
You said we had
People
to
ever give up on X-Men?
The reason you survived is because you're a very uncommon girl.
Ooh, let's do the podcast like this.
You're not alone. Not anymore. Do you know what mutants are? Would anyone like to share their first time? Rain?
I was 13.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Welcome to Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zero. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick. I tell you to visit us at IHateCritics.net, but I've had to kind of redo stuff there and update it and all, so it's not the most up-to-date at the moment. But it's the links to Patreon and the merch is still there. There's just more work to be done, and Libsyn also gives us our own page, so we could always go to that. I don't know. There's some things that in the works there, so I apologize if it's not totally up to date. But we are at IHateCritics.net and all that stuff. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, the handle's CriticsPod. Follow us there, like us there. That's where most of the interaction happens. You can see the trailers, read Sean's reviews. And YouTube, we're there as well. I think it's youtube.IHateCritics, but I don't know. I don't really know. I never looked at the link.
Just search, the name of the show.
Everyone's a Critic podcast, and you'll find us.
There you go.
Patreon, IHateCritics.net/Patreon is the best way to help support the podcast. And then the podcast merch tab at IHateCritics.net as well. We do have the 3 new designs. I just have to put them up and get them together. It's a matter of doing it. Not that hard. Sean, Cousin Jeff's done the hard work. I just got to do the easy part. But you know how I am. It'll be out there in March. This week, you can start with the Golden Globes, I guess. I feel like it's a movie podcast, so you might as well. What did you think?
I didn't watch it because it's hosted by Ricky Gervais, who is a personality that I don't personally care for. Not because he criticized celebrities. I don't care who he criticizes. He can criticize whoever he wants. I don't care for him as a human being. I don't think he's a good person, and I just don't pay attention to what he does. So I didn't watch any of that stuff. You can tweet it at me, whatever you want. I don't care. I'm not going to watch it. But I did pick up the results. I wasn't particularly surprised. 1917 is a very good movie, and we'll talk about it in just a little bit. But it is also the compromise choice. It's the easiest possible choice for most of the Academy. For the Golden Globe audience as well. It's a safe way to go because it's an artistic, challenging movie. It's got a pedigreed director. And I know it sounds like I'm criticizing it. I don't mean to criticize it. It's quite good, but it's the easy choice. Joker is the much harder choice. And I don't like Joker, but it is a much more challenging choice to go with a comic book movie that has a sort of edgy subject matter. It would be a much edgier choice than the other one. And Once Upon a Time in Hollywood itself is also in a way is kind of an easier choice than a lot of the other options.
Right. Yeah, I'm kind of with you. And yeah, I don't necessarily share completely your opinion on Ricky Gervais, but I don't like his stand-up at all. I don't think he's he could say something funny, but it's still the same kind of thing you could say in your own base. There's no art to his stand-up. It's just kind of random shit he's saying. Whether you agree or disagree doesn't matter. To me, it lacks the art of stand-up comedy. So I'm not a huge fan of it either. And I mean,
I've talked about some of this stuff before, and I guess I'll say just a little bit of it. Just that criticizing trans people is possibly the worst thing you can do in this day and age. Taking shots at them, and that's what he does. He likes to do that pretty regularly on Twitter, and that is a line I will not cross.
Well, and
you don't cross that with me because I will cut you off completely.
well, and the other thing that he does that seems so edgy, like he rips on the establishment. Well, he's part of the establishment. He's one of the more powerful guys in Hollywood in terms of a comedian. So it's not really that edgy what he's doing. You know?
He also whines about PC and people trying to silence him. You're a multi-millionaire dude.
No,
you just hosted the Golden Globes. Who's trying to silence you?
There's no, he's not being silent. It's just kind of.
There are people. If there are people in the world right now who have less power than anyone, it's trans people. They have the least power of anybody. So just to say that they've tried to silence anyone is silly.
Right. It's, to me, the whole thing's goofy, and I don't enjoy it. And not the trans stuff, the Ricky Gervais stuff. And just the show overall was kind of lame. I liked Joaquin Phoenix's acceptance speech, but that's just because I'm vegan. And New Mutants trailer. What'd you think?
Just a quick aside on Joaquin Phoenix, though. I was flipping through Facebook, and I caught one of those troll headlines, Joker star arrested. I'm like, oh shit, what happened? He got arrested at a climate protest alongside Jane Fonda and several other people who are promoting, like, he didn't run over a child with his car or something. And making it out like he did something so horrible.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I hate talking about award shows in general, but that seems to be the number 2, even though it's a very silly award show compared to even the Oscars, which is
Whereas the Critics' Choice Awards, which are taking place tonight, now this is a legitimate award show that
legitimate-ish. There's still some safety there too. I know you didn't vote safe, but a lot of them did.
No, I voted for Uncut Gems over.
I don't get
everything
that.
else.
I don't understand why Uncut Gems isn't getting the.
It boggles my mind, and I am the person who hates Adam Sandler more than anybody, and I voted for Adam Sandler for Best Actor because Uncut Gems is undeniable. I voted over Tarantino. I picked the Safdie brothers for Best Director, and I voted for Uncut Gems because Midsommar wasn't nominated. Nominated in only one category, Best Horror, where it got my vote.
And if you happen to check out our Facebook page, Sean claims he could win an Adam Sandler trivia contest.
I could. Sadly.
Yeah, but I think everybody could, which makes it... it's kind of one of those things where everybody knows everything. That's how...
That's why our team will be participating.
Oh, you are doing it?
Only if you are.
Oh. When is that? I wasn't even paying
April.
attention. Right when New Mutants comes out. So let's... So you're going to rely on me to win the Adam Sandler. I'm just kidding. New Mutants, what did you think about New Mutants?
Jeez. This is... they're never going to give up on this whole X-Men thing ever, are they? It's just never going to... Well, they're not going to give up on any property that has any kind of vague name value. I like the actresses. Maisie Williams and Anya Taylor-Joy are pretty great. This is a pretty generic horror movie setup that happens to have mutants in it. I rolled my eyes pretty hard during there's like this therapy scene in the trailer, and when was the first time? When did it happen? When was your first time? Like, really, you just get that's where we're going to go with this? It's all mutation is all about sex and puberty. That's all that the mutation is about. It's not. Let's just hammer home that metaphor a little bit harder, please. So eye-rolling.
I know. I mean, the X-Men in general was a metaphor, but now you can't... It's hard to build upon, keep
or just find a way to be subtle about it.
Right. Because that was the thing. The original metaphor is pretty subtle. You had to kind of go... the comic book, it was underground. No one really knew what it was. It got more and more popular throughout the years, but... Yeah, now that when they're... I don't know. It's back to the whole IP thing.
Yeah. It's that's the kind of thing that's just they're talking down to the audience with that, making it being so blunt about that metaphor. But then there's a lot of confusing elements to this trailer too, because I mean they're talking about how this entity inside this prison that they're in, these mutant teenagers, acting upon their worst fears, but then they show Anya Taylor-Joy can basically turn herself into metal, I guess, or something. So what the hell's she afraid of? But there's scenes where she's running around completely terrified, like something is going to kill her. Well, maybe they'll explain it in the movie that she was under some sort of thing where they took away her powers. I don't know. I hope that's the case, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense. You get the power to turn yourself into metal. What is it that you're afraid of? It starts off with her saying, "I killed 18 men, one by one."
Right.
So she's this badass character, but then she's running around terrified like an average teenager later on in the trailer.
Well, just like your average teenager, though. They overtalk. They oversell themselves. Yeah.
And again, that's just for the trailer. I'm sure maybe in the movie they'll work that out a little bit better. But you add in the scene with the therapy, and it just sort of it speaks to me of the laziness. That seems to imply that this is going to be a lazy thing overall, which we'll talk about in another movie, which implied its own laziness in its trailer and proves out when you see the movie.
I know what that is. Yeah, it's just back to your typical, the IP thing we've been talking about. The ones that were done in the boardroom where it's just simply like, where can we make money? What do we need the budget to be? What will it make on its own without us even trying? And this is one of those movies where, at least like Little Women and even The Joker are two movies that, at least use an IP and made it good. Because of the Golden Globes, the number one movie at the box office this week was 1917.
Was it? How'd it do? I didn't see the box office.
$36.5 million.
Awesome. Wow. That's way bigger than I would have expected for this movie, but I guess that means the older audience turned out on an opening weekend for once.
Yeah.
That's interesting. 1917 is directed by Sam Mendes and stars George McKay, and I don't remember the other guy's name off the top of my head. But the two guys, as soldiers in World War I, they're just behind the German front, and they're assigned a task. They've got to go from one side of the front line to the other to get to a platoon, or whatever they call it, a regiment headed up by Benedict Cumberbatch. They've got to stop him from launching an attack. He thinks the Germans are retreating. They're not. They're leading them into a trap, and some 2,000 soldiers are going to die if these two guys can't get there in time to stop it. Clever and smart premise. I don't know how much based on a true story it is, but...
right, it was kind of based on stories his grandpa told him or something like that.
Stories passed down through time, legends about World War I, and it certainly plays on the what we think of World War I is this brutal, ugly, muddy mess, and certainly this movie captures that. It's quite visceral. The main thing to know about this movie is the style. Sam Mendes directed the movie as if it were shot in one take. So the camera is chasing around these two characters, and there appears to be no shifts, like no perspective changes. It's one shot following them throughout, which is a different way to approach making a movie. Usually you're shifting, you're cutting from perspective to perspective to give you a better sense of perspectives of each character, that kind of thing. There's no breaks here. It's just now there are edits.
Well, yeah, they clearly don't do it in one cut,
right.
But right.
This is edited, but it's edited to look as if it were one shot throughout, which is, again, it's a very unique and interesting stylistic choice. It certainly worked in the trailer, and it works in the movie. Overall, this movie really works from beginning to end. It's a visceral, exciting, gripping experience. It's gross and horrifying, and the little touches of humanity that you see are almost immediately punished.
Right.
But in a way that makes sense and isn't just mere cynicism acting out in a movie form. So I liked that approach. I liked the payoffs of the story were really great, and these two young actors are really good at compelling you with their presence. They don't get much time to build into actual characters and become anything more than just sort of emotional stand-ins. But the little touches of them we do get are enough, and I thought connecting them emotionally, but having one guy have a brother that he's got to get to in order to save his life, certainly it stacks the odds in a way that are interesting. It creates stakes that are dramatic enough to drive everything while you're experiencing the style of the movie. So it really worked on me. I think it's an exceptional movie, and at the very least, when this wins Best Picture, we won't be as embarrassed as when Green Book won.
I don't know. I don't know. It's still safe, which is embarrassing. I mean, we liked Green Book at the time. We just kind of said it was a movie that was too hard to dislike, which then over time makes you dislike it because you start skipping things like...
It was desperately overpraised, though.
Right.
I don't think this one is desperately overpraised.
If it wins the Best Picture, it becomes desperately overpraised. That's the thing. It's also too new to be desperately overpraised. I don't know. I like it, but I'm in the same boat. It's just... It kind of like if Spotlight had come out in a year when all these great movies came out, would I feel the same way about Spotlight? A fantastic movie, but, it just kind of... There wasn't a whole lot of art pictures that year. And this year, there were just so many great movies like Midsummer and Uncut Gems and all these... Everything A24 did. Not to mention, then you throw in the Tarantino movies. It just... I don't know. I liked it, but at the same time, it was just kind of like one Birdman I thought did it better. So it's not... I mean, it's unique because there's not a whole lot of movies you can say did it, but at the same time, Birdman just did it a few years ago.
And Birdman, arguably much more challenging in how it did that. Where this movie is just a chase. It's an action movie that makes it actually a little bit easier.
It almost made it look out of necessity, too, because of the small spaces they were going through.
Right.
There's times where, snipers are missing him when they probably wouldn't have. I don't know. It was World War I. Yeah. But at the same time, I mean, he got shot at a lot by a sniper and didn't get touched. So that kind of bugged me a little bit. Overall, it's a good movie. It's a very good movie. Borderline great movie. There's just so many. I mean, it's not.
He also survives being blown up.
Right. So there's just a lot of. But at the same time, not everybody does. So it's not. I can't sit there and, people come home from war, not everybody dies. Yeah. So it's not fair either. It's just one of those where I'm sitting here going, well, this isn't as good as Midsummer. This isn't as good as this. This isn't as good as that. And it's not fair to this movie. No. And on top of that, I didn't watch it on like an awesome IMAX screen. I just watched it on a regular screen at the theater. And I don't know if that matters or not. But I mean, it's good. I'm sitting here going, this isn't as good as Birdman. It's not as good as that. And that's not how you're supposed to watch movies, but that's what this one suffered from, is I kept comparing it to other things.
Yeah, I mean, I've resigned myself to the fact that movies like Waves and Uncut Gems are not going to get the praise that they deserve. So it makes it a little easier for me to be kind to 1917 because I've given up. I've been beaten into submission on that, so...
And I'm not, again, it's a great movie. It doesn't hit my top 10,
No, not me either.
If I'm counting it towards last year like I think I'm supposed to. But, I mean, I'm glad it did well. It's good that movies like this do get success, because it's way better than New Mutants or something like that. Or really anything else that came out this week, with the exception of one other movie. But yeah, I mean, it's out there. Go see it. It's worth seeing.
Yeah, definitely check it out. I think they're actually showing it in D-Box in Davenport, which is the moving chairs, which ought to be an interesting experience for this.
Maybe.
So if you have a D-Box theater where the chairs move,
I'm curious what your thoughts are. If nothing else, I've only really seen one movie where I thought that really worked, and that was the Ford versus Ferrari. That it just really knocked it out of the park.
Really worked in Fast and Furious, that's for sure.
I'm sure a lot of the cars.
But it almost feels inappropriate for something that's based off of a true World War I story.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, this is not something you're supposed to enjoy.
Right. But yeah, it's out there. Go see it. Try to get it to 100 million. The next most successful movie of the week, Like a Boss.
Like a Boss, starring Tiffany Haddish and Rose Byrne, Salma Hayek, directed by Miguel Arteta, who's not a bad director, but he certainly can make some pretty bad movies, and this is a pretty bad movie. Like a Boss is about two women running their own cosmetics company and enter a large city here. No idea. There's no setting whatsoever. They're struggling. They've got one successful product. That one successful product is not enough to keep them going. But that one successful product attracts the attention of Salma Hayek as Claire Luna, this very successful makeup magnate. She wants to buy them and their company and this one product, and They resist that, and her way of getting it is to try and drive a wedge between the two friends and see if she can end their friendship so she can take their company from them. And that's the whole thing. And the movie is 82 minutes long.
Nice. Get out of there.
Well, and even then, it's padded because they add in 3 extra characters into this movie. Nicole Rothwell, Jessica St. Clair, and Ari Grainer are added in as old friends of Mia and Mel, the main characters. And they have absolutely nothing to do with the main plot. They add like 20 minutes to the movie with them. They're basically on hand, and they're so lazily employed that they basically shame Mia and Mel for not being married and with children. And I realize that this movie is too lazy and inept to have a point. So they're not making this point, but it comes off like they're basically saying, if you're a woman, you can't be successful unless you have a baby and are married and then have a company. And then you're a girl boss. Like, you got to, and that's just such a shitty message. It's such a shitty conventional message to send, that there's only one type of success. And this movie doesn't necessarily push these two characters toward that, but it certainly does imply that very heavily, accidentally, incidentally, because this movie doesn't think about anything other than raunchy jokes that aren't very funny. Like, the Jessica St. Clair character is basically here in this movie, and she's pregnant, and the only point of that is so they can have this bit that you've seen in the trailer where she's given a cake that looks like a baby emerging from a vagina. That's the joke. That's the beginning, the end, the middle, and the end of the joke is that visual. And there's no point to that. And there's a whole scene of them at this baby shower that is just essentially there to kind of shame these two for not being more grown up. And then they move on and they sell their company and become millionaires and blah, blah, blah. There's nothing funny here. Tiffany Haddish is basically doing the Tiffany Haddish shtick at this point. Rose Byrne is kind of flailing about, screeching, trying to physically force you into a laugh via her just energy, and that doesn't work. And Salma Hayek is really the only good thing in the movie. She's very relaxed in her villainy and cartoonish, and she's, seems to be making the movie on her own. And it makes sense. The last time Mikel Arteta directed a good movie was Beatrice at Dinner, and that was all about Salma Hayek. So I think maybe that was... I think he just likes her a lot, and maybe that's what he's directing towards her, as opposed to everybody else who's just lazily directed toward doing, things that are just very expected.
I didn't go see it for obvious reasons, but it seems like the type of movie where whenever you have a comedian that's, becoming successful as an actor, it's almost like you need to lower the bar a little bit and then just rely on them to do their thing. The Kevin Hart's, the Tiffany Haddish. It sounds like they're trying too much with more of an ensemble, and she's doing her shtick, but she's also doing it as a small role instead of that being the movie.
I mean, she is the main focus. She and Rose Byrne, but
she and Rose Byrne is the kind of the. Usually, there's I don't know, and then you throw in Salma Hayek, and you got 3 kind of main, and really you need to rely on that comedian to just be like, oh, this kind of wasn't as bad as I thought, because they were fun to watch. But instead, it sounds like they're trying to do too much. And just, I don't know.
I think they just didn't have enough. I mean, 82 minutes, I think they just didn't have enough material, and they're just, she's flailing about trying to create laughs where there aren't any in a script. They basically have a story to work. They have a concept to work on, and that's pretty much it.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. I mean, it's both. It's not the story's too weak, but at the same time, when it's that weak, just let the comedian run the movie and have Rose Byrne step aside and just kind of be there and lose the other friends and just make it 60 minutes. It doesn't. You don't have to make a 90-minute movie. You really don't.
Well, I think the minimum to be considered a feature length is 80 minutes.
Who cares? But not what's that? For what? To win an Oscar?
I don't know. I don't honestly know.
So it's a short. An hour long short. But yeah, it looked like shit. I like everybody involved, but at the same time, nothing from the trailer looked entertaining, although people laughed every time I saw it in the theater, so what do I know? Let's move on. The next most successful movie was Just Mercy.
Just Mercy, starring
Michael B.
Jordan and
Fox,
Brie Larson. And this is based off of a true story of a a lawyer named Bryan Stevenson, who's in the 1980s decided to go into business as a social justice lawyer, where he was going to move into the South and defend death row inmates. And he finds his niche right away because in Alabama they have half a dozen guys who are sitting on death row who weren't guilty. This is based off of a true story. This really did happen. These guys were railroaded into jail for reasons that once he starts taking a look at the case, going, were these guys even defended by anybody? The system was so ridiculously corrupt that it took him maybe a couple appeals on some of these guys just to have them looked at and, okay, we have to let them go because there's just no possible way that these guys were guilty. In the case of the Jamie Foxx character, he's nowhere near anywhere of this murder, but he gets picked up because of other reasons and is convicted off of basically not having been defended in any way. And that's the story. And then we're going to watch him struggle against this system that refuses to admit that it's wrong or refuses to admit that it's based off of racism. And he's going to fight that and turn it around. And I made fun of this trailer back a while back because it was very
John Grisham.
Yeah, but also just that sort of Hollywood choice of this is what people look like, and it's all very Jamie Foxx has this ridiculous mustache in there. Thankfully, that's very minimal in the movie. They keep that to a very very short scene, and he looks far less silly in the movie than he did in the trailer.
Well, even the guy from the Coen Brother movies, he looks silly in the trailer, but in the movie...
Tim Blake Nelson.
Yeah, Tim Blake Nelson. It's more effective and it works in the movie.
It does have elements like of a Law and Order episode, but this is Destin Daniel Cretton who did Short Term 12. So he's, he may have a bigger budget here, but he directs the movie as if he has a $10 million budget, because he's not worried about frills and spending lots of money. He's making a very dignified, very straightforward legal drama about a true story, and I like his approach. I like that this is a very dignified movie, that this is not a movie that's a lot of other directors might have used this to try and just wrench tears out of your eyes, reach into your eyelids and just try and pull tears out. That's not what he's doing here, but you're going to cry anyway because it's that good of a story, that well told of a story, and that much of a national shame as well, which is doesn't get enough attention. That this is this level of shame that we should all feel. That this was 35 years ago, guys. They were 35 years ago. We had, and I'm sure there are still
it's
today.
Still happening.
But 35 years ago, we had 12 innocent men on death row in Alabama.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that's really frustrating. It's some things happen, which is like, okay, this should end now, and no, how, what? Okay. It's very good. I suppose it's one of those movies where if it was getting the praise like 1917 was, I could probably turn on it too. But because it is, for the most part being overlooked, I enjoyed it quite a bit. Growing up, in like junior high when John Grisham started really, like when The Firm came out and all that stuff, I read A Time to Kill and I thought that was the most amazing thing ever because I was a kid and it was a pretty, pulpy book. The movie came out, Joel Schumacher, very, very fine movie. It's good. I thought this was going to be like that, and it's way more real. It's trying way harder.
Yeah.
Not that that one didn't try, but that would definitely have that Hollywood thing you were talking about. This one was just based in reality. The trailer didn't do it favors. Even Brie Larson in the trailer is just kind of like, really? But the movie itself is just very, very good. It's it pulls no punches. It hits hard, and it's just the whole way through. It had my focus, and it brought out the emotions it was supposed to bring out, and just very, very good. I highly recommend it, especially when it comes to streaming. I think I think that's where it's gonna find its audience, and it's really, really good. I mean, I don't really know what else to say about it.
It's based off of a best-selling book, and I wonder, sometimes having a best-selling book is good. Sometimes having a best-selling book makes people go, I don't know that story. I don't need to see the movie. I've already seen that. It's funny. A Time to Kill. I used to love A Time to Kill when I was a kid.
As you get older.
Yeah, when I was a kid, like that, the scene where he goes, now imagine that they're white, and it's like, oh my god, what a moment! Now I'm like watching now, and like, oh, it's so cringe. It's so cringe.
Right? No one's gonna in real life. Everybody's gonna be like, I am. Fuck you.
Troll culture's ruined that movie.
But it's also, I don't know. That's the world we live in.
Yeah, it's also Joel Schumacher and directed very basically. Once you have the tools to recognize that. Right.
No, it's I don't know. It's always frustrates me, the lack of accountability. Even the West Memphis 3, which is not based on racism at all. I mean, it's based on prejudice. But at the end, when they got out, they had to agree that they did nothing. That the courts and the police didn't do anything wrong. They weren't wrong. And it's the same with this kind of story, and probably a lot of those convictions. That's probably how they got stuff overturned, was not admitting fault. It's just frustrating and annoying. And,
yeah.
Movies like this tend to always work with me, and it's not. I mean, every movie's a work of art, whether you like it or not. But it's not the kind that's. It's a movie you're not gonna. It's impossible to hate unless you're a true racist, I suppose. It's. I don't know. A lot of ways, kind of like Green Book without the attention. It's a very good movie. It's very likable. You know what I'm saying? It's hard, you'd have to be a total asshole to not like this movie, really.
It's very dignified and well put together as well, and that should be acknowledged and well acted. I think Bryan Stevenson should be hailed as a true hero, and I don't think like this. The fact that this is the first time I've heard about him is really. Right. That's really ridiculous. This guy should be everywhere.
It makes you wonder how often it's happening.
Yeah.
Underwater.
Underwater stars Kristen Stewart as an engineer on an underwater oil rig at the bottom of the ocean. The weird thing about this movie was completed in 2017 and put on the shelf. Some people have theorized that it was about the Disney deal, that they were trying to, Disney was kind of holding up a number of different movies, based off of what they wanted to do with them. So Fox was like, okay, we can't release anything until we've completed the deal. Some people also have theorized that there was a lot of hate at the time for Kristen Stewart and trying to find a time when that would die down a little bit to put out a movie she's in. I don't buy into that necessarily, but...
The former sounds like the reason, most likely.
Much more logical and
right.
More simplistic. But I think Kristen Stewart's awesome, and this movie is actually pretty good, which is a real shame that it comes out in January and comes out with this story of having been on the shelf for so long, because it creates a perception. And obviously, this movie failed pretty badly, right?
Well, it made less than $10 million. I don't know if that counts as a failure.
I don't know, because I don't know what the budget was. But basically the idea here is that they're underwater. She's one night about to go to bed. She's getting ready for bed, and then she walks out into the hallway, and she's in an underwater rig. So if you see water dripping in an underwater rig that's supposed to be airtight, scary moment. And she sells that moment brilliantly. Like, she really recognizes right away, oh, shit. So she starts running, and explosions start to happen, and she's banging on doors trying to get other people up and moving to get to someplace safe. She and another guy are the only ones who survive, so right off the bat you got what you can assume is a whole lot of death. Then there are other parts of the rig that have also collapsed, so the movie really does a great job in putting you in very tight spaces. And if you're someone like me who hates tight spaces, it's really uncomfortable and really effective. This movie uses that a couple of times. Then it suspends you inside of an underwater suit, because the only way they're going to get out of there is once she hooks up with the captain and a couple of other characters in this movie, Matthew Castle, T.J. Miller, Jessica Henwick, John Gallagher Jr. Once that happens, then they have to get into these underwater suits, and they have to walk across the bottom of the ocean to get to one of the other older rigs that may have some escape pods in it. This is a sci-fi movie. I know that's not coming through from my description, but there's a whole sci-fi thing that's going to happen. And basically, it is an underwater ripoff of Aliens for the most part, but it's a well-made underwater ripoff of Aliens with actors that you like and characters that you come to care about, and I liked it. And T.J. Miller dies horribly, so that's another great thing about this movie is watching him die horribly.
Yeah, talk about a guy whose career is just starting to go I was shocked. Now it makes sense that it's 2 years old, but I'm like, oh, he's still doing stuff. I used to love him too. It seems like the type of movie that people were ready to shit on because the critics definitely are 50-50 on it, which makes it rotten on Rotten Tomatoes. Sure. One of the reviews I read is like Alien, only shitty. But
that's a shitty review.
Right. Well, that's a lazy review is what it is.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Is this movie great? I mean, I don't think it's great, but I was kind of compelled by it and entertained by it, and I liked Kristen Stewart a lot. I think she's a really great actress.
I like Kristen Stewart. I don't like the Twilight movies, but she's not the reason why I don't like them.
Right. And I mean, Charlie's Angels was a bad idea, but she's not terrible in it. She's having a good time.
Right.
So.
The idea, what they messed up with Charlie's Angels is they took an action movie and made it. There was no action, from what I understand. It was just kind of a talking movie and released at a bad time, and then you got a star who's not on social media to help promote it at all, which is what's Chris. But
why is she not on social media though? Is because most people would just send her hate tweets all day.
Which is just stupid.
Yeah.
Some of her underground movies aren't bad. They're pretty decent. She's definitely good in them, if nothing else. So I don't know. I think it's just shitty that they were just ready to shit on it all from the get-go.
I think so. I think people were out to get this movie from moment one, and that's really a shame. Because she's very good. And T.J. Miller dies horribly.
How did he die?
He's underwater. He's wearing the suit. He gets basically just, like, exploded inside the suit.
Oh, awesome.
So, yeah.
Even if I liked it, that'd be a cool death.
Yeah, you get 2 of those pressure explosions in this movie. It's really gross.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event for the linear, legitimate, and universally recognized Undisputed Classic.
Freebie and Bean.
Why did I do this? This is worse than the burnt offerings.
Because it's James Caan and Alan Alda.
Arkin. If this were Alan Alda, this might not be that bad.
Probably would be.
He might not be pretending to be Mexican. Valerie Harper, boy, that was awkward. Wow, yeah. That was Breakfast at Tiffany's bad.
Different time. Kinda.
Always wrong. No matter. I know. It was always wrong. This is essentially what was described to me as the first buddy cop movie, and there's an argument between this and another movie that maybe that other movie came out first. I don't know. I don't even remember the name of that other movie, and I researched this. So here we're basically just jumped right into this. There's no setup. You're just in it with these 2 guys who are investigating a guy who moves money for bad people, and they're trying to nail him, and that guy's got people trying to kill him, and they've got to try and keep him alive until they have all their evidence to arrest him and take down other people. This movie's bad. It's bad. Like, James Caan and Alan Arkin, are fine for the most part.
Yeah, their chemistry is not great.
Not great. Like, you can tell that they're not friends away from this.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of action in this movie. A lot of action scenes, a lot of repetitive chase scenes, lots of tough guy posturing that would go on to be refined further in other buddy cop movies. This is not something, though, that I would see as being all that influential. I mean, I know it's 2 cops, and one of them is supposedly of another race. But this is not... Lethal Weapon is not influenced in any way by this movie, I don't think. I don't think it takes anything from that. I think this movie's far too shitty. Not that Lethal Weapon is great art, but it has its own thing.
It's definitely the bar. I mean, even 48 Hours is better than this.
Yeah, I would say.
Which, I mean, 48 Hours is below, so I shouldn't say that.
Which will be a classic later this year.
Yeah, I was kind of excited about it because I like Alan Arkin and James Caan, and it just...
we've not had much experience outside of The Godfather of the whole of James Caan.
And it's kind of... He's basically Sonny in this movie, more or less. I mean, the ending, I guess, is okay. It's way more gruesome than I thought it would be. You don't see Mel Gibson just shooting a guy to death.
Yeah.
And, like, him blowing up in the bathroom or whatever. But at the same time, it was just kind of, I don't know, it was almost like, it's amazing that it came before all these movies, because it's kind of like Tango and Cash Bad, only not as fun. You know what I'm saying? That's the Stallone Kurt Russell chemistry almost. Even worse than that.
Even worse than that, because you'll buy Russell and Stallone as tough guys. I don't buy Alan Arkin as a tough guy in any way. And that's just years of seeing him in other roles, but he's just not tough. And
I'll be honest, I didn't really know much about him until he was old. And that's when I started liking a lot of his movies, so I don't know. I don't know the young Alan Arkin that much. I don't know. I was just kind of disappointed. I wanted this to be better than it was. It's funny.
That's what the hope was when I chose this as a classic, was that it would be some kind of secret, secret great movie that's been hiding, from the rest of the world. Like, okay, we get to discover this and bring it to the light once more, and people will see that this is great. Richard Rush is a good director. He goes out and directed The Stuntman. Actually got The Stuntman made because Peter O'Toole actually read this script and didn't hate it.
I could see the script not being horrible, because it's not, when you're reading it, you're not reading white guy plays Mexican. You're reading the story.
You're not seeing Valerie Harper as a Mexican woman,
right? That's what I mean. And you're not,
because as offensive as it is with Alan Arkin, he's not so much of a stereotype. Whereas Valerie Harper is essentially playing the Breakfast at Tiffany's version of a Mexican woman.
Right.
It's awful. It's so bad. It's so cringe.
And then just because, the chemistry was bad, but I could see that dialogue reading well on a page.
Yeah.
And
that's the thing, too, is that Khan and Arkin, they hated the action of this. They wanted it to be about their characters and their interaction, and that's what they felt that they signed on for, was a movie that was about developing them as characters and their banter, and they thought that was going to be the movie. And then Richard Rush is like, no, we're making an action movie, and we've got all these chases. And so there was two different energies going into making this, which you can definitely sense when you're watching the movie.
But the banter just wasn't good. Even there's a scene where it's supposed to be uncomfortable because it's up high, and like I could see Danny Glover and Mel Gibson knocking that out of the park, or even Stallone and Kurt Russell could do better. This one would just kind of like, I don't know. I guess probably a highlight of the movie, I suppose, but it's still not good.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just kind of bummed. It's funny because I think we have like a podcast Amazon account to watch these movies, and I think you're watching it at the same time I was going to watch it. So instead, there was a movie next to it called The Freebie, and I was like, I'll just watch this instead, with Dax Shepard and Katie Aselton, about a married couple who want to explore.
Yeah.
I didn't finish it.
That's the thing. It's like, first of all, the title is also based in racism, because essentially he's Mexican and they call him Beaner. Yeah, awful. That they don't even kind of really go into the freebie thing, which is kind of there. Because he kind of gets at it in one scene, because he's a guy who likes to being a cop, so he can use his being a cop to get free stuff. That's why people call him freebie, which includes him getting free stuff off of prostitutes. But then again, that's only kind of alluded to. It's not explored, and thus it just comes off as a silly title, and you don't really even understand his nickname all that well, unless you're like me and you did a lot of research into what it was supposed to be about.
What it was supposed to be about.
What his character name.
I know, but that's funny. That's kind of what this movie is. Yeah, I can say I've seen another James Caan movie. I like Santa's Sleigh better. Less offensive.
I'm wondering, because Thief is hanging out there. That's supposed to be one of his better performances.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's bad, but Sonny's one of the great characters of all time. Is it offensive that he's not Italian at all? I don't know. But they've kind of accepted him as an honorary Italian. No, I'm not.
Less offensive.
Yeah, I'm not trying to go down the...
than Valerie Harper, which is just horrific. Right.
Yeah, it's just...
Hogan family mom pretending to be a Mexican woman. Oof. Yikes.
But yeah, that existed. So. The movie we picked that for was called Downtown. I don't think either one of us saw it.
No, it's hard to find.
Yeah.
But it's a buddy cop movie. Forrest Whitaker. We were really struggling to try and figure out what a classic could be this week, just to go with this group of movies. Something we hadn't seen before or done before. So aliens and kind of underwater movies are kind of out because we've done the main ones that people are.
A lot of I can't think of any war movies we haven't done.
Yeah, the war movies. I mean,
sure there is, but
All Quiet on the Western Front is like 5 hours long, and I'm just not going to do that. I'm sorry.
And A Time to Kill doesn't need to be a classic.
I honestly forgot when we were putting it together. I forgot to draw that comparison.
It's not a classic anyway, so it's fine.
We just had another crash moment.
Yeah, I kind of don't want to watch it again because I've left it as it's not bad.
Leave the memories alone.
Internal Affairs. Or Internal Affair.
Internal Affair is Richard Gere and Andy Garcia. I felt like we watched this last year.
I might have. Sometimes the numbers is weird.
Yeah.
It's the website we use to get our 30-year-old movies.
It felt more familiar, though. Well, it felt familiar while I was watching, and then as it went on, it felt less familiar, which is good, I guess. But Andy Garcia is an internal affairs cop. He gets assigned to a case that happens to be adjacent to Richard Gere's character, who's kind of a hero cop, but he's also dirty as all get out. He's basically stealing money wherever he can. And Ray Liotta it's Andy Garcia. Sorry.
There's another character.
Ray Liotta probably played an internal affairs cop in a last year's movie with Richard Gere, probably. Andy Garcia begins to investigate Billy Baldwin, his character, and he stumbles upon Gere's character and all that he's doing, and becomes this sort of cat and mouse game between the two of them, with Gere kind of trying to stay just a step ahead, killing everybody he needs to kill in order to keep people quiet and kind of growing out of control. This is pretty good.
Really?
I mean, in terms of just a straight-ahead thriller, I mean, Gere is a little bit off because he's just so peaceful, so serene, so quiet. He doesn't necessarily get into the kind of craziness that this role would seem to require. But Andy Garcia is intense and exciting, and he's paired with Roseanne's sister, Jackie, whatever her name is.
Oh, Laurie Metcalf.
Laurie Metcalf, yeah. And despite some awkward dialogue about her, there's again, it's of its time. There's a lot of really good stuff between the two of them as partners, and him especially. Andy Garcia was so intense back in the day that his intensity could carry through a scene and actually carry you over some really bad stuff or negligible material, because his intensity is so exhilarating. And that's what I kind of was drawn to about this movie, was just how intense Andy Garcia is.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, with the cast, you got the lesser Baldwin, you got basically Michael Douglas Light, who really should be Harrison Ford anyway, between the two of them. And I mean, I can't really think of who you'd put over Andy Garcia, but he's always seems to be in that movie that's just a step below everybody else. But that's good that it's better than it sounds.
Yeah, I liked it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Andy Garcia especially, and I like the choices of the violence that they do here, and Gere, for the way his character progresses and the choices that he makes of who he's going to kill and why is not clever, but at least you have a really strong understanding of what he's doing and how much this is spinning out of his control.
Yeah. Just never been a big Richard Gere guy. Just seems like he's always the same character, with the exception of maybe Chicago. Yeah. The movie that made me realize most horror movies are bad, Leatherface. This is the first one I saw that sucked.
3.
Yeah, this is the first one I saw. The first Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie I saw.
Yeah.
And then kind of the first horror movie I saw where I was just like, oh, there's like nothing here that's good.
Really short.
Yeah.
Really short. Very struggles to get to 80 minutes here. But Leatherface, basically, this is kind of negating the second Texas Chainsaw Massacre comedy movie and trying to link back to the first film. The opening crawl essentially says that Leatherface was able to escape because the other Sawyer was arrested, and they said that that Leatherface was an alternate ego of his, and so they didn't believe that the guy with the chainsaw actually existed. Basically, he's found a new family with two guys who act like his brothers and a woman who acts like his mom, which, again, is totally not in the way that Texas Chainsaw Massacre works, because there was the lack of feminine energy is what drove them in the first movie. So this movie clearly doesn't care or understand about that. Wants to be gruesome, and it's not really that gruesome. The guy who wrote it writes books that are apparently very, very gruesome, like all about painting gory pictures in your head. But here he doesn't really do all that much that's all that gruesome. I mean, yeah, there's a lake full of bodies, and there's a couple of scenes of bodies being pulled out of the ground, but you don't really see the actual really super gross stuff. Like there's one moment that should be super gruesome where they use this contraption to break a guy's head. And you don't even get to see it. You just hear the impact of it. You don't get to see it, whereas you saw it, and you'll see it in other movies. Not that I wanted to see it, but I mean, the movie is kind of bloodless. There's the most visceral moment is there. Viggo Mortensen hammers nails through the hands of the lead girl, played by Kate Hodge, and that's really the most gruesome moment of the movie. It's the bloodiest even of the movie. Ken Foree's in here, is a kind of a horror movie legend from the Night of the Living Dead series. He's all right. I don't see how his character survives. when your head is basically touched on a running chainsaw, it just seems like that's not something you get away from. But nevertheless, this movie was changed a lot in the editing.
Right.
Like the first ending of this movie was much more gruesome, and did have a much I don't want to call it satisfying, because I don't know what a satisfying ending this would be, but it was one that was not as optimistic.
Which is almost what you have to do with a movie like this if you want it to be good. This one runs into that whole, how do we make money? Let's turn this character from Texas Chainsaw Massacre and make him Jason or Freddy. I mean, up until this point, he really wasn't. I mean, he kind of is, but they just wanted they wanted this, basically turn a character into a Jason and make money off of it. And that's why you have all the changes. That's why this guy who wrote the books, not this book, but, he wrote books that are gruesome, probably didn't get what he wanted to do. You just had a lot of people probably saying, we need to do this, this, and this to make money.
Yeah. And this was definitely made with the idea of a franchise in mind, centered around making Leatherface into Michael Myers, Freddy, and Jason.
And that's what's so frustrating about it. I don't know.
Because Leatherface in the first film was very singular. It's a very singular, almost believable character.
Right, and it's part of a family. It's not just, it's beyond him. And the bloodlessness there is, one, out of necessity, but two, it adds to it. Maybe that was part of what, there's no blood in that one. Let's try to do it. I really don't know, but all I know is they kind of failed more than they didn't. And it's always kind of been that movie. That's the first one where I was like even when I saw Friday the 13th for the first time, I was like, holy shit, this is scary. I'm covering my eyes under the covers. And this one was just kind of, I don't know, just
kind of silly.
Like it. Yeah.
I guess the idea here was and they do a better job in the documentary about the making of this movie, selling this idea than they do in the movie. But the idea was to mirror at the time, the new modern family, which is the family that you bring together yourself as opposed to the family that you always had. And we don't even really learn how, these people came to work with Leatherface, how they came to be in his orbit. Leatherface doesn't seem to be the type of character who would be open to bringing in new people. But at some point, I guess he must have raped one of his victims and had a child who's a creep. And I guess because that's a nice marketing tool is to have we got a creepy child in this one. And then how you bring in Viggo Mortensen's character and the brother character and the mother character. Where did she come from? How did she end up in this situation? These are intriguing questions that the movie doesn't have an answer to. And maybe there's a much more interesting movie in how this group of people actually came to be in the same place as Leatherface and him willingly adopting them as his family. That's probably a more interesting thing than just lining up another series of victims and and brutalizing them.
Yeah, I will say the documentaries for these movies, all of them, are pretty interesting. And I know 1 and 2 were just so frustrating. I don't think anybody enjoyed making those movies, but they just kind of, I don't know. It sounds like this one was pretty frustrating too. And I don't know. It's when you start to get outside of the main artist and you start bringing in business people, that's when movies suffer. And this is a perfect example of that. And
yeah, and it just goes to show that Tobe Hooper is one of the more unsung visionaries of all time. You know, this just goes to show that you can't just take what he did and do it yourself. He was singular. He's an artist. He's an auteur, and as much as he may have rejected that idea about himself, he was a visionary.
Oh yeah, and you look at Texas too. They say the business people come to him. Oh, I want to make some more money, and he just basically does the opposite of what they want. It's a giant middle finger, which makes it just, I don't know, that helps the movie be great for some reason in a different kind of way. Just because it's the way he's going about it, it's just silly. And then there's Ski Patrol.
Which is it's much more PG than I was aware of. This is really lame. I didn't know George Lopez was in this. George Lopez is in this movie. Basically, it's your typical, save the mountain story. Their mountain is threatened by a super rich developer played by Martin Mull, and they've got to party real hard to save their mountain, and then they've got to be really responsible in the last minute to show that they can be responsible and still party. I don't know.
You can't save the mountain without a bikini car wash. I don't care how cold it is.
This is a very PG movie, though, and really lame. Not for being PG, just lame in general. TK Carter, oh boy, that guy is embarrassing to watch. He does impressions that are just awful, but the rest of the cast is directed to make it seem like, oh my God, that's ingenious. He just went from Stevie Wonder to James Brown to Michael Jackson on the stretch of one song that's not by any of those guys. And wow, it's so impressive. No, it really isn't. It's not impressive. Paul Feig is in this movie, by the way, the director.
Jeez.
He plays the nerdy virgin guy who has to be de-virginized.
Makes sense.
By the Russian exchange ski patroller, which is a trope for sure.
Would have been better in an 80s version, though. 89 through 92 is just a weird time in pop culture because that's when you're really getting that switch from the glitz and glam to the grungy kind of, I don't know.
Hollywood had even co-opted the raunchy movies at this point. They'd taken the blood out of Porky's and and we're now remaking it and repackaging it for PG audiences.
And they're trying to figure out where the next step is, and really when 94 hits is when it really takes off with Pulp Fiction and whatnot.
I could so see the pitch meeting for this in The Player. What if we did Animal House, but they're ski patrollers? And Tim Robbins just with his feet up on his desk going, great idea. Who's got the Coke?
What year is it? Yeah. I feel like it's going to be a weird year for the. Yeah. 89 was pretty weird, but this is really when it's going to start to get even more weird. There'll be some great movies though that come out.
It'll be interesting. I've been looking ahead a lot, and there's not a lot out there. This is a weird year. Looking ahead to the next week of 1990 movies it's a bizarre set of movies.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, next week we've got for new movies Bad Boys for Life and Doolittle, some more IPs. Classic Bad Boys, another buddy cop movie.
Yeah, we're doing Bad Boys because Bob's never seen it.
Yeah. Tried to watch it twice this weekend.
Oh, yeah?
Fell asleep both times. Now, granted, I put it on at midnight and laid down.
Right.
But I saw the scene where they, right off the bat with the car, and drops the fry down, and then I fell asleep shortly thereafter. But the 30-year-old movies, we got Tremors, Brain Dead, Everybody Wins, Street, and Cinema Paradiso.
I feel like somebody's tried to tell me that Brain Dead is some kind of secret horror classic.
Let's look at Rotten Tomatoes real quick and see what the audience thinks versus what
I have no idea what Everybody Wins is, but Deborah Winger was everywhere in 1990, just in every kind of movie. as I've been looking ahead a lot, putting together our list of movies for the year, and
Tremors is always fun.
people love it. I've never understood the cult around Tremors. It doesn't do anything for me, but I'll take another look at it.
Holy shit, Bill Pullman and Bill Paxton were in the same movie?
I know. How will you tell them apart?
I know. It's, man, audience score 70, critics scored 17, so.
Interesting. Well, hopefully it's available. I want to see it.
Yeah, that should
What's
be
the
fun.
premise? Do you have the premise?
The premise: a neuroscientist is hired to perform experimental surgery on a once brilliant, now institutionalized mathematician in the hopes of retrieving some valuable data. Something goes wrong, however, and the surgeon soon finds himself deep within a nightmarish world of reality shifts and strange happenings in the science fiction thriller.
Weird.
So
I imagine Bill Pullman's going to be the straight man.
Bill Pullman's the doctor.
Yeah.
And from the picture, his face looks all fucked up. And I don't know who Bill Paxton is.
I'm guessing he's the mathematician.
Either that or Bud Cort is.
Oh my God, Bud Cort, really?
He's the number 2 guy on the cast.
Wow.
George Kennedy's in it.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't mention this when we were doing Freebie and the Bean, but for some reason, Loretta Swit from MASH is listed as the third lead in the movie, and she's in 2 minutes of that movie.
Yeah.
She has one little speech at the end, and that is it, and it's not necessary at all. And she wasn't MASH wasn't even a thing yet.
Oh, yeah, I keep forgetting that wasn't a 1990 movie. I'm trying to, swear to God, MASH was around before that.
No, Freebie and the Bean.
I know. Kyle Gass from Tenacious D's in Brain Dead.
Really? Oh, wow.
I'm sure it's just an extra, but...
Proto Kyle Gass.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to that one, and I've never seen Sin and Paradise, so when I hear people talk about that, it's amazing movie. That is our show, though. I do want to thank our Patreon supporters for supporting the podcast. At the key grip level, we've got Jason Bryant. At the craft services level, Zach Codemaker. At the character actor level, we have Christina Cato, Josh and Beth Paul, and Cousin Jeff. Then at the special effects level, Corey Finneran. If you want to be a supporter, ihatecritics.net/Patreon. The best way to help support the podcast. And then, obviously, the podcast merch. Keep an eye on that. We'll also be throwing it all over our Facebook page and Twitter and Instagram. Critics Pod is the handle. And then like us on YouTube, subscribe, and hit that little thumbs up button, and send the notifications to you so you know whenever the YouTube videos pop up, so you can watch them there. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Want to play Flick Chart?
Sure. Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, let's see what we got here. Elf, Johnny English.
Ooh, pick your poison.
Elf isn't that poisonous.
Elf, I guess.
Bicentennial Man, Batman 89.
Batman 89.
Avengers Infinity War, Ace Ventura, Pet Detective.
Avengers.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not a big Ace Ventura fan.
Do you like Infinity War? I can't remember.
I don't even remember how much, whether I liked it or not. I like it more than Ace Ventura.
Well, that's fair enough. Super Troopers, Uncle Buck.
Oh, Jesus. What the hell? Uncle Buck, I guess, because Super Troopers is balls.
I'm with you. Gravity or Mamma Mia?
Gravity.
Agreed. Footloose or Rocky 3?
I think I'd watch Rocky 3 first.
As would I. And they're both kind of which movie would you watch first? Movie. Neither one's great. Ju-On or Michael Clayton?
Michael Clayton. That's actually a pretty underrated movie.
Yeah, well, Ju-On's an overrated movie. Go, 1999, or The Blair Witch Project.
Blair Witch, but I really like Go as well.
Yeah. Cool Runnings, 93, Back to the Future 3.
Cool Runnings.
I agree, although I do like Back to the Future 3 better than 2. The Big Lebowski or Brazil.
Big Lebowski.
They Came Together, Alien 3.
Which ones they came together?
Paul Rudd, name me Polar.
Oh yeah, that's actually a pretty funny movie. What was the other choice?
Alien 3, David Fincher, kind of.
I'll go They Came Together.
I agree. It's Oblivion, Shrek 2.
Let's see, which one is which? It's Shrek 2.
Oh, good. I thought we were going to have to flip for that one.
I don't really remember Oblivion that well, other than it's Tom Cruise.
Right. Richie Rich, Judge Dredd, 95.
Whew, Jesus.
Want to just flip for fun?
I'll flip for my choice and George's. Heads.
Richie Rich.
There you go.
Son of Godzilla, 1967. Have you seen that one?
No.
All right. Casablanca, Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers.
Casablanca.
Thought a little too long on that
Yeah,
one.
I don't know why I did.
The Fountain, 06. The Hobbit, 1977.
The Fountain is far more daring. If bad, but...
Apollo 13, The Man with the Golden Gun.
Apollo 13, I'm in the minority of people who don't hate that movie.
I don't hate it. I just don't love it.
The minority of snobs who don't hate that movie.
Event Horizon, The Breakup.
The Breakup, yeah, I hate Event Horizon.
I don't hate Event Horizon, but I like The Breakup better. Apollo 13, Panic Room.
Panic Room.
Yeah. 101 Dalmatians, Wild Things. 96 Dalmatians, by the way. I think the Glenn Close one.
Wild Things for only the embarrassing reasons.
Kevin Bacon, I agree. The Fly, 1986. Broken Arrow, 1996.
God. I find The Fly to be a movie that I find hard to watch, which I guess maybe is to the film's credit in some ways. I guess it's a better movie.
You don't find Broken Arrow hard to watch?
No, I find Broken Arrow very easy to watch. John Travolta is kind of magnetic. Is as terrible as he is. It's bad. Both he and Christian Slater are bad, but that movie has a sort of a bad movie magnetism to it. When he's delivering that speech at the end, when the bomb is on the train, and he's just going full out, balls out crazy, I kind of enjoy the movie.
That's when I was kind of like, I guess the comeback's over. But you are right. It is a magnetic bad thing. God, why are they putting stand-up specials in here? All right. Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, 2011, or Transformers Revenge of the Fallen.
Anything's better than Transformers.
Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, Castle in the Sky, 1986. Looks like a foreign film.
I don't recognize it.
Fear and Loathing, The Bone Collector.
Fear and Loathing.
X-Men 2000, The Count of Monte Cristo.
Count of Monte Cristo. It's not a terrible movie.
X-Men's not a movie. 2012 or The Graduate.
I'm not the biggest fan of The Graduate, but it's better than 2012.
I am with you. Free Willy, The Negotiator.
The Negotiator. So watchable.
Fortunately. Tenacious D and The Pick of Destiny, Get Smart.
Tenacious D.
I actually watched that recently.
I find myself drawn to watch that movie, even though it's not a movie, really.
Right. White Men Can't Jump, Rocky 5.
White Men Can't Jump.
Agreed. Frosty the Snowman, 1969, or Watchmen.
Frosty the Snowman.
Oh, fuck you.